Hello, my name is Asia Cabigon Kegler, and today I will be defending my Summa article of I.90, Article 2, specifically whether the human soul is brought into being through creation. In this article, I will explore the idea that the human soul is directly created by God and not formed by physical matter. And the belief that the soul is created by God is supported by Thomas Aquinas, who argues that God creates each soul individually rather than it evolving from a material substance. This idea connects to both religious teachings and modern science, which suggests that our existence isn't just brought about by random events. So I tied this in to cosmogony and the Big Bang Theory. So right here, I don't know. So I can, okay, I try to put like the Big Bang Theory diagram there as a visual aid to help illustrate what I was talking about. But for example, the Big Bang Theory shows how the universe began from a singularity, and cosmogony, the study of the origin of the universe, helps us understand how everything in the world came to be. So while science explains that physical creation of the universe, like the soul, is a spiritual connection, a spiritual creation that only God can bring into existence. So, by using both religious philosophy and the Big Bang Theory, I argue that the soul is something uniquely created by God that's separate from the physical origins of the body. So, this understanding shows that the spiritual essence isn't dependent on material causes, but more so on a higher, like a divine will. So, let me go. Okay, so here's my objection one. The soul cannot be created out of nothing. If something has a material component, it must come from matter. Modern understanding poses the idea that any being that has a material component comes from pre-existing matter. This correlates with the principle of law of conservation in physics that matter cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Consequently, the material components of any being, including the souls, must come from something. So, for example, when we look at a tree, we know that a tree comes up, when we look at a tree, we know that it's made up of soil, water, and air. In the same way, anything with a material component has to come from something that's already existed. But when we talk about the soul, we have to remember that it's not made of a physical matter. The soul isn't like a body that can be broken down into smaller parts. Thomas Aquinas feels it's a spiritual part of us that exists beyond the physical world. So this means the soul doesn't follow the same rules as physical things. But that being said, while everything in the physical world comes from pre-existing matter, the soul is something that's uniquely created by God and doesn't have to have any physical components to it as well. So, move on to objection 2. Everything that exists in matter comes from the potential that is made up of matter, because matter is not active on its own. It can turn into something. So everything that the theory suggests that the universe began from a singularity, that singularity being indefinitely dense, that contains all potential for matter and energy. In this context, matter is not active by itself, but it contains all the potential to form different structures, which poses the idea that the existence of all things like the soul began potential in this cosmic manner. I'm going to go a little bit faster so I don't run out of time. But this means that matter itself isn't active or alive, but it has the ability to change into something different. So everything that exists starts with this potential, like a hidden power, um, like a hidden power inside matter. So this correlates with cosmogony and the Big Bang Theory because it explains that the universe began from something like a singularity. And in this way, matter itself isn't doing anything by itself, but it has the power to create something new. So, according to Aquinas, again, it's not made up of, the soul isn't made up of matter, but it's something uniquely created by God. So, let me go to the next one. Objection 3. A soul is a form, so if a soul is created, then all forms must be also created. This ideology of substantial form is also similar to Aristotle's view for metaphysics. So, according to Aristotle, every material substance, like a tree or rock, is defined by its own form. This is what makes that thing what it is and not something else. So, I think like the best way to explain it is if God creates the soul as a form, it would be consistent with the idea that all other forms in the world are also created. So it helps us understand that forms like the soul don't just exist on their own. Again, they're created by a higher power, by God. So the side contra here is Genesis 1:27 says God created man in his own image, so people are made in God's image from their soul. This means the soul is made by God. So in the Bible, Genesis chapter 1, it says that God's created by man in his own image. So this idea helps us understand that the soul isn't just some random part of us, it's something that's special and intentional, made by God to reflect his own image. So the soul allows us to think, choose, and feel just as the ability that God has as well. Okay, and this is the response. And I'm not going to read the whole thing for time constraints, but basically, the soul isn't something that's physical like our body, and it can't be made from something already in existence. So spirits can't turn into other spirits. So the soul must be created by God. So basically, Aquinas is saying that literally the soul is made by God and not any other entities. Like, it's not the same way that a tree or a rock is formed because it's nature and it's not complete without any other components. Like, the soul is itself. So, that's why it's saying that, like, the soul must be created, man by God, but it cannot come from anything physical or spiritual that already exists. So it stands alone. Okay, reply to objection 1. In the soul, the basic identity is connected to its experience, but it's important to note that the soul doesn't have a material part like a physical object. So this formal aspect of the soul is what makes it a real soul because it already has existence. So the soul is tied into its existence because the form reflects the way it exists. So this is why the soul is unique and different from anything material because it doesn't need any matter to actually define it. So its existence is what makes the soul, and that's what makes it, again, completely separate from its physical matter. It's kind of repetitive, but it's the same point over and over again. So the soul has its own identity, and it's not based on material things. So again, it's created by God. I'm going to hurry up again. So reply to objection 2. This basically explains that our thoughts and intellectual abilities are not just results of our brains or physical bodies. They go beyond what material things can do. So this shows that the rational soul exceeds the potential of matter because it has abilities that matter alone can't explain. The soul is more significant than anything physical, and that's why it just can't be the potential of matter. It has to be created in a completely different way by God. And the last one is going to be a reply to objection 3. The rational soul is different from other forms because it doesn't work the same way as other forms of life. So while animal souls and their other forms depend on the body to exist, the rational soul is unique in that it doesn't rely on the body. the body's existence. So it's so special because it has a spiritual nature that allows it to exist independently from physical matter. This is one of the key points that Aquinas makes, because he argues that the soul of animals aren't subsistent. So this means that they cannot exist without a body, and they don't have an existence that stands on its own like the rational soul does. So Aquinas says that the rational soul is different because it's created directly by God, again, which is a higher power that doesn't need anything else for its existence. So this is the end of my defense for my Summa article, and thank you so much for a good mini-mester. Thank you.